This story starts out in the suburbs of Chicago right after World War II in the early 1940s. There was a kid, and we'll call him Harry. He was short. The other kids in elementary school made fun of him. They thought he was a nerd, and by all accounts, he was a nerd. So a lot of times he'd go out to recess, he'd be by himself, and he'd try to join the other kids, climb trees, play games, things like that. And they'd just shove him back down the hill. They'd call him names, and they'd make fun of him, and basically made him feel like he wasn't good enough to hang with them. Well, as time went on, this didn't really change for Harry. As he got older, everybody in his class was shy. It was hard for him to make friends. He kept to himself. But something happened to him in high school. He got involved with his high school's radio station. Now, he actually worked up the nerve to become its very first sportscaster, and he loved it. He loved it so much that when he got to college, he decided he needed to do whatever it took to overcome his shyness. See, Harry knew that shyness was a major obstacle to his ultimate success. He knew he had to get more comfortable around people. So, he looked over his college course directory and found courses that he thought would help him to get over what he knew was a huge handicap for him. Now, he enrolled in these courses, and one of the courses he took was Acting 101. And as you can imagine, for someone who's extremely shy, this acting class stretched him out of his comfort zone. But you know what? He loved it. He loved it so much that he became obsessed with acting. Now, he learned every single thing that he could about acting. He took every course, he read every book. It became a literal obsession, and he took advantage of every single opportunity that he could. In fact, he was so obsessed with acting that he ended up leaving college. He left the Midwest and he headed to LA to become a full-time voice actor. Now, by this time, it's the 1960s, and once he got to LA, he was promised, like a lot of people who moved out to LA, a bunch of roles, a bunch of success to be the next big thing. But guess what? He didn't get any of that. It seemed whenever he thought his career might have some hope, might gain some momentum, he came into an encounter with a very well-known influential director, and without intentionally meaning to, he offended this guy, seriously pissed him off. Guess what he did as a result? His resume hit the bottom of the toilet. Word of mouth, because of this incident, and because the director was so influential, his name sunk to the bottom of the hiring list. Basically a blacklist of people not to work with. So for the next 3 years, Harry, all he could end up getting was uncredited roles, which are basically little bits and parts of the movie where the role is so unimportant or so insignificant that your name isn't even worth mentioning. But that didn't stop Harry. He kept hustling, he kept working hard, and he started to gain some momentum in the late 60s and early 70s. He got small roles in some TV shows that were fairly popular, which, weren't his dream, but they were better than nothing. Finally, he had a breakthrough, or so he thought, in 1969. A well-respected French director cast him as the lead role in his first American film, and Harry was pumped. And guess what happened? The bigwigs at Columbia Pictures, the people who were producing the film, the executive team vetoed the decision. They said, "You have no experience." They said, "You have no future in acting." Imagine being Harry, literally picking up his whole life, moving to a new city, working for years to get that opportunity that would finally get him the chance, and it was snatched right out from underneath him. Imagine hearing those words, "You have no future in acting." Most people at that point, what would they do? They would say, "You know what? This isn't for me. You know what? I need to be more realistic. You know what? This is just a pipe dream." And they would have given up, but Harry didn't. He believed in himself, and he was willing to do anything that he could to keep his acting career going. He taught himself carpentry, and he would take menial jobs that could pay the bills and support his family. He auditioned, he worked, he networked as much as possibly could, and he finally tasted a little bit of success. He met a young visionary director and impressed him enough that he secured a small part in the top grossing film of 1973. The name of that film was American Graffiti. Now, Harry sensed the tide was turning and that good things were coming. The problem was, they didn't happen for another 4 years. So Harry continued to work his ass off 24/7 to make ends meet and to give himself a chance to succeed. He kept working in carpentry and doing small jobs. In fact, he ended up installing a door for Francis Ford Coppola, the legendary director of The Godfather. And I want to emphasize for you, Harry's dream was not to be installing doors and sweeping up shit and doing menial jobs. This guy's dream was to be an A-list actor, but he knew he had to do whatever he had to do to keep his dream alive. And that impressed Coppola, and it led Francis Ford Coppola to cast him in a few minor roles in successful films, which led to more experience on his resume, which is one of the things he got shut down for before, not having connections. Well, now he had some. And that connection with Coppola eventually led Harry to be reunited with the same young visionary director that he had worked with on American Graffiti. The young director hired Harry to be a stand-in for screen tests on a new movie he was working on. And even though he was just a stand-in and he was just a screen tester, Harry delivered the performance of his life, and his charisma lit up the screen and captivated this young director. You know what that director's name was? George Lucas. You know what that movie was? Star Wars. A movie that ended up becoming the highest grossing film of all time. A movie that literally became a part of American culture and a worldwide phenomenon. And to this day now, Harrison Ford is known worldwide and will always be known as Han Solo. That was his legendary role that launched a legendary career in Hollywood. When you think of A-list actors, Harrison Ford has been at the top of that list for 40 years. But I guarantee you this, throughout his career, somebody has said with every single success that Harrison Ford has had, gets paid millions of dollars for, lives in a big ass house, owns 9 airplanes, some idiot is going to be saying, must be nice, because people only see the highlights. People only see the final production. They don't see the 20 years that this man put into his craft. They don't see the hard times. They weren't there for the work. They didn't see him sweat. They didn't see him panic. They didn't see him have nervous breakdowns. They didn't see him installing doors. They weren't there cheering for him when he got rejected again and again and again and again, but refused to quit. All they see is the finished product. But the only thing they aren't seeing is the entire picture of how success really works. See, no person reaches ultimate prosperity without taking a bunch of punches to the face. Contrary to what society tells us, there is no overnight success in the business world, or in life in general for that matter. We have to pay our dues. We would not even know of Harrison Ford if it wasn't for his unshakable confidence in himself. Would we even know his name if he didn't have the grit and the persistence to drive and push through literally 20 years of doing shit that he hated to find his path in the world? Most people would have given up when the rug was pulled out underneath them the first time, not the 30th time. Most people would have quit after year 1, not 17 or 18 or 19. We look around at the people who are living the lives we want to live. The one thing they all have in common is their persistence and determination. This is what sets them apart from all the wannabes, all the pretenders, the fakers, the shit talkers, and everybody else in society. Persistence is what made Harrison Ford successful. He refused to accept less than what he wanted. Did he have to be patient? Yes. Did he have to have grit? Yes. Did he have to have the determination? Yes. Did he have to do the shit he didn't want to do repeatedly, over and over and over again for years at a time? Yeah. Did he have to develop thick skin and a strong state of mind? Yes, he did all that. But what we have to understand is that this is the recipe. This is how successful people become successful people. They pay the price others aren't willing to pay. They understand that they're going to have to do shit that they hate. They get this. It's a given. But what they also understand is they're not willing to settle for anything less than what they want. And that's the difference. That's why Harrison Ford is a multi-millionaire. That's why everybody knows his name. That's why his net worth is $230 million. That's why he's a Hollywood legend. And that's why he is, and always will be, Han fucking Solo.